Aren't you guys impressed? I remembered that. And now it's recorded for all posterity. Well, welcome to Day in the Life of an Asset Manager. We're really glad that you're here. Today is KPI Day. And last month when we talked about KPIs, we talked about vacancy and occupancy, how those numbers affect your bottom line. And so we're going to continue talking a little bit about that, although just some different things that do affect your bottom line, as far as people that are in units, residents that you have. We're going to talk about economic vacancy. We're going to talk about concessions. We're going to talk about bad debt. And then the people that live in Texas, we're going to talk about electric because that has a big effect on you and is a big effect on your underwriting. So we'll go ahead and get started with economic vacancy. So we have physical occupancy, and that's how many people are living at the property. So if we have 80 people living there, and it's an 80 unit property, we have 100% occupancy and 0% vacancy, right? What does that mean if we have 100%?
We need to raise the rents.
We need to raise the rents. That's right. So anytime you have a notice to vacate and someone's going to move out, the market's telling you you can raise your rents. So you need to raise them. That's just kind of one little thing that you need to keep in mind. So when we're talking about economic vacancy, now we're talking about people that are physically living there, but what would change the economic vacancy? Go ahead, Kim.
They're not paying their rent.
They're not paying their rent. Yes, those little stinkers. So we have people that are living there, but they're not paying their rent. And so when we look at the economic vacancy or the economic occupancy, it's really important because we definitely need to stay above 85% because that the bank's looking at that physical and economic. That means that they're living there and they are paying. Now, I don't really worry too much about delinquencies until the 15th. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't concern me because they do, but I don't really start kind of hammering until we get to the 15th. And I'll tell you why. People that pay, they get paid every other week. If let's say they get paid on the 3rd and they get paid every other week. So they get paid on the 3rd. They chose not to pay their rent. So 14 days are going to go by and it's going to be the 17th. So when we're meeting and it's only been a week, so they got paid on the 3rd, now it's the 10th, they've not gotten any more money. They won't get any more money until the 14th. And so that's why I try really hard to be mindful of a lot of our residents, are they getting paid every other week? How's that working? And then we offer flex pay at our properties. So what that is that's a service that they can sign up for. They have to be current. You cannot get this and be delinquent, but they have to be current. And then what they can do is they're going to say, I'm going to pay half of my rent now. And then in 2 weeks, I'm going to pay the other half of my rent. And FlexPay is going to pay their rent. So they no longer are issuing their rent. FlexPay is issuing the rent. But it really does work for people that are on a limited budget and they get paid every 2 weeks. Sometimes they think, okay, I'm not going to pay my rent this, but I'll pay it next time. And it's just really hard if their budget's tight. They need to make half a payment, out of one paycheck and half a payment out of another. Now, I'm going to give you just a little tip here that has nothing to do with apartments. But if you have a mortgage Okay, so you guys, I'm talking to homeowners now. You own your home. If you will, and you have a 30-year mortgage, and you will make half a month's mortgage payment every other week, you will take 7 years off of your mortgage. Because when you think about it, there are 52 weeks in the year. So if you're paying every other week, you're making 26 payments instead of 12. And if you took 12 and doubled it, it would only be 24. So it means you're making two extra payments. I hope I didn't lose you with that. But if you will trust me, you will take 7 years off of your mortgage. Just pay your half your mortgage every other week. And it's so much easier. I mean, it just is less painful, let's put it that way, than trying to make it out of one. So, okay. So now we understand that economic. Those are people that are not paying. So let's talk about what can we do if they're not paying? What are some things that we can do? Do you guys have any ideas? You got a resident comes in. It's after the 15th, so I know we've already hit the second time for a payment. They still haven't paid their rent. What can we do? Any ideas?
Mm.
Oh, good job. You guys can speak. You don't have to type it, but good job, Dave. He said call and have a talk and see what's going on. That really is your first step. Is you want to talk to that resident. You want to, say, "Hey, can you, stop by the office on your way home today?" And you want to tell them, "Hey, I know that you haven't paid your rent and today's the 17th and I'm concerned, what's going on." So we don't accept partial payments at our properties. That's why we really would encourage them to get caught up and get on flex pay, because once they do that, then they're only paying half every 2 weeks. Um, the other thing we can do is we can have a list of resources available where we have called around to places that are close to our community, maybe like the Salvation Army or maybe the Catholic Church. So you can call some of those and just say, do you have some sort of resource that's available for someone if they need help in making their rent? And so then when you're talking with them, you're not just saying, hey, you need to pay your rent because I'm going to evict you. You're giving them a couple of options. You can say, why don't you try the Salvation Army? This is their phone number. Why don't you try Catholic Charities? This is their phone number. And just look up charities around where you live. Now, they're not going to pay the rent for someone that's just choosing to not pay their rent because they don't want to. But if someone has had a baby, a lot of times they will make a couple of months payment of the rent. Or if someone has been hospitalized and hasn't been able to work, you know, this isn't a long-term solution. This is just a little bridge to help them to get from where they're not going to be evicted. I mean, trust me, the last thing I would want to do would be evict a brand new mother and her baby. And so, but we also want to do more than just throw our hands up in the air and say, well, I don't know, how are you going to pay your rent? You know, we can always, remind them that they have family and friends that they can talk to, but they know that. And so I don't want to be the one saying, hey, you need to call your mom. They already know they need to call their mom to get the money. But I want to be able to say, here, call the Salvation Army or call Volunteers of America or other charities that are around and explain your situation. And I would also let them know this is a short-term fix. This is to help you in this situation. It's interesting because you end up being almost a financial advisor of sorts when you're dealing with people that don't know how to manage their money. Like they don't know how to do it. And honestly, they don't teach it in school. I don't think they even teach you how to balance a checkbook. I don't even know if people have that. I personally don't even have a checkbook register anymore. I mean, I used to, but I don't anymore. So, I mean, I don't know that people have those life skills. And so I actually spend time with my on-sites and help them understand that you know, although it's not part in their job description, it makes their life easier if they work a little bit as a financial advisor and help them. Let them know that Flex is available. Let them know that there are resources that they can go to. Um, because in the end, it saves time and money of our on-site having to call and follow up with them and be like, why aren't you paying? Why aren't you paying? Go
And
ahead.
some of those charities will have financial counseling as part of their, like, we will help you pay your rent, but you need to take this education course or whatever to, because it's not just about helping, it's about educating. So, because some people never learn those skills, or some people need that lesson a couple times. So, but yeah, a lot of times they will either make it a requirement or they'll offer that. And I definitely would stress with repeat offenders, maybe getting them some financial literacy assistance. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of those do. They don't want to just give you money. They want to help you. Like I said, it's a bridge. Um, and they may, Dave put in the comments, maybe they would like us to let their, where they're sitting there and they call their mom and you're the leasing agent and you can say, I'm the leasing agent here at, Harding's Meadows and, they owe rent. And, is there something that we can work out? Because sometimes that might help too, coming from another person. But that's part of all the leasing agent and knowing the people. That's why we want it to be a community. So who's who's going to be very reluctant and maybe who, is going to need a little bit of coaching from you. Um, so that's talking about economic vacancy. Now we have some other things that are going to diminish our income. And really, I don't want to say we're all about the income, but finance is the language that we are speaking. I mean, it's the finances. We have investors to pay. This is a business. This is not a charity. This is a business. And so we have things that are going to diminish our income, and we have to decide, is it worth it or not? So a couple of examples of concessions is sometimes, especially this time of year, right now when we're in October, man, I'm looking over those reports so hard because once we get to the end of October, we are not going to have movement until after January because it's November, it's Thanksgiving, then we have Christmas, then we have New Year's. Very few people move during those 3 months. So who I have as a resident at the end of October is probably who I'm going to have come the end of January. And if I'm short, then I really have a problem. If I've got a lot of if I have a lot of vacancy. So sometimes we'll do a concession where we'll say, you know, if you'll move in this month, we'll give you, $400 off your rent, and we'll break it into 2 months. So you'll get 2 months, be $200. One month will be 200, the next month will be 200. It's hard for us to take that $400 hit in 1 month, especially let's say we have to do that for, 5 people. So that's $2,000 that we're shorting, and that over a year, that's $24,000. So we have to be mindful of how we're doing it. So we want to be able to maybe break it up where they get 200 1 month, 200 the next month. The other thing that we offer so that's a move-in concession, or we might say move in for $199 or move in for $99. And we've done that before. So we're going to lose, what we lose when we do that is we lose the admin fee, the application fee. Um, I think there's a that well they'll still pay their deposit. So we would lose the admin and the application, which is going to be about 250. So together. So that is a way to get people to move in is to offer concessions for them to move in now. Um, the other concession that we offer is we like to have police living on our properties. We like to go to the precinct that's closest to our community and ask them, hey, can we put up a sign in your break room that we're looking for an officer with a marked car? So they're newly out, they have a beat, so they've got a car, and that will give them 20% concession. And so that's a concession that we make that makes it possible for the officers, which most of them don't make a whole lot coming out of training anyway. So it's kind of a win-win for both. Now, I have a property that the officer has lived there for more than 12 years. So I don't know. I think he probably makes pretty good money, but he doesn't mind. He likes living there. And then we ask them to do a few things. We ask them to walk the property in the morning before they go to work, and we ask them to walk the property at night, like around 9 or 10 o'clock when everything is shut down. If whatever time your pool closes, when all of that's done, we'll ask them to walk the property. They are also the first call that the on-site's going to call. So let's say there's a party, it's 10:30, it's after hours, it's noisy. They don't call, the on-site doesn't call the police. The on-site will call the officer and say, hey, can you go over to apartment 12? They're having a party, it's really loud. And so he'll walk over, just say, hey, you guys need to turn it down, it's too loud. Because what that does is it keeps our residents safe, but then they also know that someone is there looking out for them, and you don't have a million cop cars showing up at your apartment the whole time. So it really does help create this sense of community and people watching out for. I have a story that I've told before where we had a guy, and this is the guy that's been there for 12 years. It was a holiday, and it's a kind of a secluded apartment complex. And there was a guy that had been celebrating way too much. It was a holiday, and he was inebriated, and he was going door to door looking for his friend. And of course, people called the officer and said, hey, this guy's here. Well, he goes to tell the guy, hey, who is your friend? And, let's get you out of here. You don't belong here. It's after hours. And the guy kind of got into a tussle. They rolled down a hill. They took out a fence. Um, but he was there with his car and his handcuffs, and he put handcuffs on him, put him in the back of the car, took him down to the station, and then the guy that was wandering around had to pay for the fence repair. So it works. I mean, it does. It really, really works. So we do want to make sure that we have concessions there. Let's see. Is there a way to receive some sort of tax break with affordable housing? No, there's not. There's no tax credit for that. And that we do have to be careful with that with affordable housing, because to live in affordable housing, they can't make more than X amount of dollars. So that's why it's really going to be important to, say you want somebody kind of new out of the academy, because that way they don't make more money than they're allowed to make by living there. I only have one property that is affordable housing, but we do have to watch for that. So those are some concessions. So those are going to affect your bottom line. Bad debt. So let's say we have someone, they didn't pay, they get evicted. So what happens on eviction is they are charged all of the rent that they owe. They are charged the court fees. Now, if let's say court is in 2 days, we've already gone in, we've filed everything, and they come in and they say, hey, we don't want to go to court, we want to stay. They can, but they have to pay all the rent that they owe, plus they have to pay the court fees, because we're not going to be out that money. We've already paid it. So we get that money back. If we go to court, we don't lose because we only go to court if they haven't been paying their rent. And so we don't lose. And then what happens is they're charged the, the rent that they owe, plus they are charged the court fees plus they don't get their deposit back. And then we're going to go look at their apartment. And if they left it in a bad way, which most people that are being evicted can be a little vindictive, and they usually mark up the walls, do all kinds of things to kind of tear it up. So then we have to go and charge them the fee to get the unit fixed and brought up to condition to be able to rent. So all of those that is the amount that is sent to collections. Now, so bad debt's going to be a number that's going to show how much money we have in bad debt for the month, but occasionally it'll be a negative number. And the reason it'll be negative is because we got the funds. Someone maybe 6 months ago. So the bad debt account is kind of a revolving account. It's going to grow as people put money in, but then when people pay, it's going to reduce it. So that's kind of a revolving thing. And then we just have a few minutes left, and I want to talk about electric. Let me see, is there ever an application for B or C apartments? Sorry, using headline. So I have only purchased one property that was a LIHTC, and honestly, I wouldn't do it again. There is so much paperwork that's involved, and so many regulations that you have to abide with. Every year, you have to recertify the person to make sure they're not making more money. And then I don't know. I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but I feel bad because if let's say they've gotten a raise and they're doing really good in their job, and now they make more money and they can't live there. And I think that sucks too, because, you know, that's where they're living. That's what they can afford. I don't know that even if you make a little bit more money doesn't necessarily mean you can afford more. But so the last one I want to talk about is electric. And so in Texas, we had a rate that everyone paid. I mean, it was a monopoly. There was, same thing here in Phoenix. There's two electric companies in all of Phoenix. I mean, we're talking, 7 million people live here,
And
and
they don't have competing markets. Like if you have SRP, you do not have APS. Like there's no competition.
Yeah.
You're just stuck.
where you live is where you're assigned to pay your electric. So you don't get to choose like one's better over the other or cheaper or whatever. Wherever you live, they just assign it. Well, in Texas, they had that, but then they got rid of it. So now they have all these electric companies popping up everywhere. And we had a contract at a property that we purchased just recently. We purchased it in May. And as we wanted the seller to sign the contract that he currently was in because it would keep it at the rate. And that little stinker wouldn't do it. And so we had to sign a new contract. So all the electric went up for not just us. I mean, every resident, now their electric's more and our electric's more because we pay for common areas. We pay for the lights, we pay for the, pool, all of the common areas, we pay for that. So our light bill has doubled and our residents, their light bills have doubled. So what we're doing now is we're going to go to a third party where we can do a RUBS, where it'll go to a third party. They'll be able to calculate it and then send it back. And we're hoping that it will hopefully give them a little bit of a break on their electric. But we'll see what happens. It's kind of in the future. So, anyway, we are at the end of our time. I can't believe it. It goes by so fast and I do all the talking. So we have a couple seconds. Anybody have any questions? I know, Dave, you had a couple of questions.
And Kim has her hand up.
And Kim has her hand up. Go ahead, Kim.
So earlier you said that you when it gets toward the end of the year and you're looking at your records and everything from each property and you really look at them very closely, are you referring to the lease dates, like whose lease might be ending and they might be moving, or what are you looking for?
If I said end of the year, I misspoke. I meant the end of the month.
Okay.
At
Maybe
the
I
end of the
took it
month.
as the end of the year because we're at the end of the year and we were
So
talking about nobody moving and
yeah, because so when it gets to be, I don't worry about it when it's the 10th, but when it's the 15th, then I'm like, oh my gosh, these people have to pay. We've got to get them. We've got to see what's going on. Um, and then when it is time to renew, we do look to see how many times they're late because let's say we're at 97% occupancy and I have a person that pays late every month. I may choose to not renew their lease. I don't have to renew it. I have that choice because
hmm,
how much time and money have I spent as an owner paying my leasing agent to run them down, ask them questions, find out why every month, especially when it's every month. So we definitely, if it's someone that's late every month, we definitely look at that before we renew their 12-month lease. So if
okay.
they're late like 9 out of 12 months, we look at it. Doesn't mean we're not going to renew it, but we definitely look at it and see.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Next week is going to be underwriting. So all of you have your pens and pencils sharpened, ready to go. Uh, Tyler's going to go over some do's and don'ts of underwriting. And unfortunately, Dave, I don't have the answer to your question about refinancing and then going to a nonprofit. I don't have the answer to that, and I'm so sorry. And we don't really have time to dig into it. But I look forward to seeing all of you next week. Please, what is it? Subscribe, like, tell your friends. Let's keep building this community. We are getting ready to start announcing our asset management class, which will be coming up in February. And you'll have an opportunity to register for that at a really good discount before the end of the year, especially because we want you guys, you're here learning. We want to take you through it. We want to give you all of the forms that we have and teach you how to do all this. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. That'll be coming out November 1st. So
Nice.
anyway, you guys have a great day and we'll talk with you later.